Good evening. I will call this first Business Services Standing Committee meeting of 2026 to order. And we will start with the territorial acknowledgement. Following that, please stand if you are able for a roll.
We would like to acknowledge
We would like to
acknowledge that the land on which we gather here today
was used by the Haudenosaunee,
Anishinaabe, and Neutral people.
We also acknowledge the enduring presence
and deep traditional knowledge,
les lois et les philosophies traditionnelles
of the Indigenous people
with whom we share this land today.
with whom we share this land today.
With whom we share this land today.
So the agenda is in front of you, distributed on Friday. Could I have a mover and seconder from the committee to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Trustee Weston, seconded by Trustee Cody. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that is carried. I have no announcements. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will move along. There are no delegations scheduled for tonight. There are no items for staff follow-up. There are 3 reports in your package. The first of those is on folio 1. It's the Brampton Ridge Boundary Study. And Senior Manager Agar, if you would like to present from the podium, there's a recommendation in your package. So following the presentation, I'll ask for a mover and seconder to approve that recommendation. Go ahead whenever you and the PowerPoint is ready.
Good evening, trustees. I'm here to present the Brampton Ridge Boundary Review report. And I first just want to acknowledge the work of our senior planner, Sarah West, who's with me this evening, as well as our comms team, specifically Ross Howie, who really pulled through very quickly, both Sarah and Ross, to get this together to be able to present to you this evening. So this is an abridged review, which is used when options are limited. There are very few schools involved and implementation is time sensitive. So this review was initiated in response to community feedback following the Southeast Galt, sorry, I guess it was during the Southeast Galt, not Galt, I can get my words right here, Southeast Cambridge Boundary Review in December. And families in the Brampton area expressed strong preference for attending Moffat Creek Public School due to proximity. Staff did analyze enrollment impacts and found them to be minimal, making this change feasible. This review does align with the Administrative Procedure 4991, which is boundary reviews for qualifying for an abridged review process. Go to the next slide. The review involves 3 schools, Central, which is a JK to 6, Stewart Avenue, which is, serves this area for grade 7 and 8, but it is a JK to 8 facility, and Moffat Creek Public School, which is a JK to 8 facility. And the proposed change affects Area A, which is currently split between Central for JK-6 and Stewart Avenue for 7-8. The goal was to move Area A to Moffat Creek effective this September 2026. So this map on the screen is also found on Appendix B or Folio 4 in your package. Affected Area A is located south of the Cambridge North Dumfries boundary line. It's bound by the Grand River to the east, North Dumfries Hamilton boundary to the west, and the North Dumfries Brant County boundary to the south. It contains the settlement area of Branchton, and the recommendation is to assign Area A to Moffat Creek Public School. Moffat Creek is geographically proximate to the Branchton area, and Area A more specifically, so the change would create a contiguous boundary. Students currently attending Central or Stewart Avenue Public Schools in 25-26 school year may remain at their current school without transportation. In terms of potential impacts, the proposed boundary change will affect both current and new registrants. The current JK-5 students would be directed to Moffat Creek with transportation, or they may remain at Central with no transportation, but would be automatically given opportunity to continue to attend there. The current grade 6 students who are at Central, so they'll be a grade 7 next year, would be directed to Moffat Creek instead of Stewart Avenue with transportation. Current grade 7 students who are currently at Stewart would be under a legacy provision. Having transportation provided would remain at Stewart. Alternatively, they may opt to attend Moffat Creek. That's an option, and transportation would also be provided. For all new move-ins or generally JK registrants for next year, they would be directed to Moffat Creek with the transportation. This approach does balance community preference for proximity while minimizing disruption for existing students. So we are working under tight timelines to allow this change to proceed for the 26-27 school year. We did start the engagement launch by some notices and a feedback form back in December, just before the break. Immediately following the break, we held a virtual information session, which was well attended, and we continued to collect feedback. And we are now presenting the report to you within, just weeks of launching this. However, we did have received lots of feedback, and that's provided in your package. So if we do get support for the recommendation this evening, we'd be looking at board ratification for January 26th, which allows us to meet our timelines for staffing and other things to be able to proceed for a September change. Go to, in terms of the feedback that we did receive, we'll go to the next slide there. Thank you. We had the online survey, we had school day notices, social media in the virtual information session. The key themes were, traditionally what we hear out of boundary reviews, desire to keep siblings together, families want to avoid splitting children between schools. There's concerns about changing schools generally. Some parents fear disruption to friendships and routines. Transition challenges, some worry about, emotional and social impact of moving to a new school for their children. But there's generally that community preference for proximity, strong support from the Branchton students attending Moffat Creek because it is closer. So overall, the sentiment, majority did support the change, citing convenience and safety. Some requested phased implementation or legacy option for older students, which we have provided. And a small group did oppose the change, mainly due to concerns about leaving established school communities. So our recommendations address the concerns by allowing students to remain at their school, their current school. So we are seeking your endorsement of the recommendation on Folio 1 to approve the proposed boundary change for Area A to Moffat Creek effective September 2026. This recommendation also allows for the students currently attending Stewart and Central to remain without transportation. We do have a communication plan ready to go to inform families post board ratification should that proceed. That concludes my presentation.
All right, before I take questions and comments, could I get a mover and seconder for the motion on folio? Trustee Radlin, seconded by trustee Cody. Any comments or questions? Trustee Radlin and then student trustee Trivedi. Was there anyone over here? Okay, go ahead, trustee Radlin.
Well, I'd like to thank planning and communications, Sarah and Ross for this report. And so am I hearing that this boundary review is a response to parental requests that we got when we were doing the Southeast Cambridge?
Yeah, through the chair. There were several comments that we received through the Southeast Cambridge boundary review requesting that the Brampton community go to Moffat Creek. We didn't address it through that review because Central and Stewart were not part of that review. So rather than expand the scope of the review, we felt that a way to address that request was through this abridged review.
I'd just like to express appreciation that the response was honored and it was addressed in a timely manner, and we are able to present parents with these alternatives. So thank you.
Student trustee Trivedi.
First, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. I understand that this abridged boundary review is like a bit of a rush and it's on a timeline. So I'd like to inquire about the specialized education students and programs at Central and Stewart, if they exist, and if those students are being accommodated at Moffat PS.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any congregated programs that might exist at those schools that students from this community specifically might be attending. I'm just looking to Sarah. I don't think we had any identified students, but anybody changing to Moffat Creek, if they're on an individual education plan, for example, there would be a transition plan between the schools to make sure that if a student is changing schools, that they will be supported by their receiving school, just as they were supported by their current school.
I just follow up. This was informed. Are parents going to be informed of this, or have they been informed of this?
Through the chair, they will be informed through the school, through the transition planning, should this boundary change be approved.
Thank you very much.
Trustee West.
Thank you. Through you. My question is around, I guess, how many families did this survey go out to through school day? And what was the response back? I'm just looking at the timeline of when the survey went out, and it was really over the Christmas break and the winter break. So a busy time for families. I'm just wondering what our response rate was.
Yep, through the chair, I believe. So I'll answer the first question, or the first part. So we did send the information out to both the Central and Stewart, and Moffat, actually, all three school communities. So the full school community received it through school day. The affected area has 14 students, so we would presume that means fewer than 14 families. There was approximately 12 people who attended our public information session, and we received at least 15 responses to the survey, I believe. 15 responses to the survey. So some of those might be people who aren't directly impacted, but might be attending those schools. There's also, I know one of the family members who was attending the public meeting, it lives in Brampton, but currently has students at Moffat Creek for French immersion. So you kind of got a mix, but I think we managed to get to the majority of the people that would have been impacted or heard from them as well. So I would say, in terms of response rate, it was extremely high compared to what we
Yeah,
would
that's-
normally see. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Follow up?
Yeah, just follow up. Thank you. That's what I'm hearing, that it was a high response rate. So that's good news for this. So thank you.
Trustee Ramsey, I have a question, but I like to go last so that if other people have the same question, they get the opportunity. Go ahead, Trustee Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, the staff. I'm just obviously having a substantive disagreement with the recommendation. I'm just wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit or speak to the parent that is saying, I do not agree with the boundary change because they made requests before for an exception to actually have their kids attend Moffat Creek, only the board to turn around and you're going to be doing this. What do you say to them, those families? Because there's one coming out of work or two, there's more that wants to hear it. So.
Yeah, through the chair, certainly we know we can't address everybody's concerns about attendance at the time when it happens. This honestly, from planning's perspective, was the first time that we had actually heard from this community directly. We noted that in one of the comments there was a petition, I believe, that was circulated. I'm not entirely sure how long ago. To my knowledge, that was never directed to planning. So, as we heard about this being an issue, we certainly took the steps to address it. And the request from the community, hence why we were moving to do this quickly, as we knew that was the preference of the community. For those who did or were required to attend the other schools just based on what the board's boundaries were at the time, we have made an exception for them within this recommendation to be able to continue to attend there. So we're trying to do our best to minimize transitions and changes to families if that is what is supporting those families and those students.
Any follow-up? No. Okay. I will remind trustees that there wasn't capacity at Moffat Creek until we freed it up by building Southeast Cambridge. So we redirected a bunch of students from Moffat Creek to there, and this gives us the opportunity to accommodate the 14. My question is, that's a very large area on the map. What happens if in the future that area becomes a larger subdivision and there's more than 14 people? Will we have to do another review?
To the chair. The area A is entirely contained within the township of North Dumfries. That has very few policies that would allow full subdivisions to be built, primarily around servicing constraints, and that there wouldn't be municipal services. It doesn't mean that estate type developments can't occur based on current provincial policies, but to see any major subdivision be approved is highly unlikely based on the current policies that are in place through official plans. So we would anticipate if there's any type of development happening, it would be a handful of houses, not full, subdivisions or anything that would have a major impact on enrollment.
Okay, thank you for that answer. All right, if people are prepared to move to a vote, I don't see any other speakers. All those in favor of the recommendation as moved? Any opposed? That is carried unanimous. Thank you. So we move on to the next report, which is the interim financial report and forecast. And Superintendent Landry is making his way to the podium already. So please go ahead when you're ready.
Great.
When the slide deck is up, I suppose.
There's no slide deck today. So
Okay.
my
So
apologies.
off when you're ready.
Yeah. All right. Good evening, trustees. Happy New Year. The Q1 interim financial report starts on folio 11 in your package. As noted in your report, this information is based on financial results up to November 30th, 2025, Q1. So our ability to convey a high degree of confidence or fundamentally change our forecast for the year after only 3 months is quite limited. So we have updated where we can, but this is largely, outside of enrollment and maybe strategic spending. It's largely the same information you would have received as the budget. When we include the additional $6.5 million in strategic spending that was approved for 25-26, which we discussed at the November 19th BSSC meeting, our forecast for the year is a $6.2 million deficit. So back at budget, we passed a balanced budget. We've introduced $6.5 million in strategic spending. Our forecast for the year is $6.2 million deficit, which means we're largely on track from where we expected to be at budget. On folio 12 in your report, we identified a couple items that are impacting our revenue forecast at this point, including lower than projected enrollment and an increase in continuing education funding. Although we are projecting lower enrollment compared to the budget forecast, enrollment for the year will not be confirmed until after our March 31st count date. On a year-over-year basis, we are projecting a decrease in enrollment, but this only reflects about 0.7% of our total student population and is consistent with broader enrollment trends across the province. Trustees may recall that on May 14th, 2025, planning did provide a presentation to trustees about enrollment forecasts and current trends and projections. So that really spoke to a lot of the demographic trends that we're seeing play out right now. We continue to monitor our enrollment trends and adjust our staffing and resource allocations accordingly to ensure we remain fiscally responsible in light of those changing demographics. On folio 13, we summarize some of the key expense changes we're noticing at the end of Q1, including lower expenditures on classroom teachers, but this is directly related to enrollment because as the enrollment didn't materialize, we reduced the teaching FTE accordingly. Overall, I would say that we remain confident in our financial position and the changes we've implemented over the past couple of years. As always, we will continue to monitor and provide updates on a quarterly basis throughout the year. Happy to answer any questions trustees might have.
Okay, given that there's no need for a motion, we'll move straight to questions. So it's Trustee Redden, Trustee Weston, Trustee Watson, and of course, other members of the committee put their hand up. You'll be moved below them on the speakers list. So go ahead, Trustee Redden.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just a question of clarification. Budgets. You said we are on a projected in-year deficit of 6.2 million.
Yes.
But we are on track for a balanced budget. So can you help me understand?
Through the chair, to clarify, what I was referring to is in June when the board passed the initial budget, it was a balanced budget. We've introduced $6.5 million in strategic spending, which is basically the deficit that we're now forecasting. So I guess what my point was is we're not seeing any other pressures emerge at this point in the year. It's really just the strategic spending that we've talked about that's pushing us to that $6.2 million deficit.
Thank you.
You follow on? Trustee West.
Thank you, through you. I'm looking at the enrollment and down over 500 FTE. It's concerning from your projection. In the JKSK, that's down 100 that won't be entering the system as we thought, and another over 400 down from projections from grades 1 to 12. I'm not sure if this is a financial question or not, but I'm wondering what's going on here and what our strategy is to bring more students to the WRDSP.
Through the chair, the province of Ontario, for the first time, the Ministry of Finance has indicated that we are seeing an overall decline on a year-over-year basis. The population of the province is actually shrinking due to a variety of factors, one of which is changes in immigration policy. In terms of our projections, yes, these students did not enter in JK or SK as we had anticipated. If you recall from the presentation in May, and I'm not expecting you to, it's quite a while ago, but one of the trends that we are seeing is that a delayed start for a lot of students. A lot of students aren't actually coming until grade 1. And because we use a historical retention model to forecast our JK-SK enrollment, our retention model hasn't quite caught up to that reality yet. We're adjusting it every year. And you know, we're off, you know, I know 75 in SK and 17 in JK. You know, they're material numbers, but it's you know, less than 1% of the student population, so it's pretty close. So, and we are hearing from other boards that they're seeing some of the same play out. In terms of what we're doing, I know Communications has increased our promotion of kindergarten registration. We introduced or opened at kindergarten registration earlier this year to try and give more parents more time. There's a ad campaign blitz over the holidays, movie theaters, bus terminals, buses, things like that. So comms is trying to get the message out there. So we're doing everything we can from that perspective. And I also think that some of the strategic spending that we announced in the fall will help us, you know, demonstrate to our community that we're committed to some of our core priorities of literacy, numeracy, classroom safety, and ops. So,
yeah, thank you for that response, and no one didn't remember in May, so thank you for the reminder. You had mentioned the overall decline. There's a declining population in the province. Is our projections that are lower than anticipated, is that in line with what you're seeing across the province?
Through the chair, I haven't done that analysis myself, so I can't speak to it. We do know that the student enrollment population is declining year over year. The Ministry of Education has advised boards they've always advised us to be conservative in our estimates. I think they've doubled down on that message now because they're seeing some boards, and we're not in this predicament where they have forecasted enrollment staffed and they don't have some of the staffing flexibility we do to reorganize. So they get stuck with that labor cost and the enrollment doesn't show up. So those boards are in a difficult financial position. We're not seeing that. But in terms of like what we're seeing in terms of a 0.8% decrease compared to the province, I don't know if that's the same. We can look into that. And probably for Q2, I could comment on that.
I think that would be helpful.
Trustee Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a result of a response from staff there, or through you, just wondering if you could comment on, for example, this is obviously pure speculation, but if what staff are doing to attract more students, if it does result in positive gains, let's say a couple of thousand students, do we have the space and so forth for them if they come knocking on the door for September 2026?
Through the chair, a couple thousand would be great. I'm going to defer to my planning colleagues. I don't know, Lauren, if you're able to comment on that.
You can be able
to.
Yeah, okay. Through the chair. We certainly, it will depend on where those students come, whether we have space or not. So certainly we have some facilities that are over capacity and some facilities that certainly could accommodate more. Where we do have students that come to facilities that are over capacity, we use temporary accommodation funding and deploy portable classrooms. Oftentimes, you know, if it's students that come kind of in various grades, we can fit them in to the existing class organization. But if it results in us having to reorganize schools and more classrooms needed, then that would be the method that we would use to accommodate growth.
Any follow-up, Trustee Ramsey? Nope. Okay, Trustee Watson now.
Thank you. Just a question about enrollment and its relation to finances. I think it was a couple years back, we were around 300 students, for projected enrollment that didn't materialize. And then last year was 600, and this year, I think it's 513. So when we talk about the strategic spending and the 6.2 million, has the lack of student enrollment been factored into that deficit, or could that deficit grow to be more?
Excellent. through the chair, excellent question. It has been factored into our revised revenue forecast for the year. So as you know, enrollment drives our grants. So we've adjusted our enrollment in the financial information system for the ministry and adjusted our grants accordingly. So this forecast captures all the enrollment impact.
And through you to staff. So where will we take that money from reserves? So let's just say everything stays the same. We had a deficit of 6.2. Will we take that money from reserves, or is there another plan?
Through the chair, that will be funded from reserves.
Thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Weston again for a second.
Thank you. Through you to staff. Looking at the bottom of page 7, folio 17, when I look at the notes, it just makes me a little concerned because they all seem a little, enrollment is lower, capital spending is higher, so we have higher interest costs, interest revenue is lower, things like that. So I'm just wondering your confidence level in continuing a balanced budget based on some of the notes that are in these financial statements.
Yep. Through the chair, like I said at the outset of the presentation, because it's Q1, we're projecting 9 months of operations based on the first 3 months. So while I have confidence in what we presented here tonight, to say I have a 95% confidence level, I would think would be misleading. As things continue to evolve through Q2 and then Q3, obviously our confidence level rises significantly. If there's any sort of change in our overall budget picture, or if we identify risks that are emerging or pressures, we would bring those in the next update for sure. At this point, I'm not anticipating anything, but working with Naruma and her team, we're keeping a close eye on a lot of these things. So,
seeing no other hand, I will just make a comment, which is not for Trustee Landry, but I would note that there are not just financial implications to students not entering school in junior and senior kindergarten. I think it needs to be reflected in how we approach teaching grade 1, when a whole bunch of students that traditionally have had 1 or 2 years of schooling already are coming into school for the first time. So I think that that will be a handful, as well as the financial implications. Okay, this report was for information, so you may take your seat.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will call on Superintendent Sager to do the capital projects quarterly update, which is on folio 21.
Good evening and happy New Year to all trustees. To the Chair of Trustees, I will be presenting the major capital projects quarterly update report listed on folio 21. I'll begin with an update on Willow River Public School. For your information, it is located at 670 Thomas Lee Drive. This project created 591 student spaces and 49 licensed childcare spaces. Since our last update, the gym, the stage, and the music room opened in December. Work continues on the second floor and the spiral staircase in the main lobby. And we are on track to have the second floor of the school open by mid-February. Moving on to our next project, the new Southeast Cambridge School Joint Use Campus with the Waterloo Catholic District School Board. Located at 655 Wellesley Boulevard, this project will create 519 student spaces and 88 licensed childcare spaces for our board, along with 354 student spaces for our co-terminus board. Work on this project continues to progress well. The gas service is expected to be connected next week, which will allow the main floor to be heated and enable thawing and drying of the building. Exterior veneer work is expected to begin this week by the cement masons, While window installation work is anticipated to be completed within the next 2 weeks. The roofing work remains ongoing. We remain in a good position to have the school open for September 2026. Turning now to Breslau Hopewell Crossing New School, located at 95 Locksley Lane. This project will create 611 student spaces and 72 licensed childcare spaces. Good news, the construction tender is expected to close in the coming days, and once the project is awarded, the construction is anticipated to begin shortly thereafter. Finally, I'll provide an update on the Elizabeth Ziegler restoration and renovation project. Located at 90 Moore Avenue South, staff are in the final stages of establishing the pre-qualified contractor list for both general contractors and cement masons. The building permit application has been submitted, and we anticipate issuing the tender by the end of January, with construction expected to commence shortly after the contract is awarded. With that, I'd just like to point out in Appendix A, we provide a summary of all the major capital projects along with additional project details. That's found on folio 23. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our capital projects.
Trustees, any questions? Trustee Ragland.
Thank you through you, Chair. Thank you, Superintendent Segar, for that mainly good news item. So Appendix A suggests that we have received funding for Elizabeth Ziegler. Is that so?
So through the chair to respond to the trustee's question. So we did speak with the ministry to ask if this project would qualify for capital priority funding, which it will not. So we will have to use our school renewal funding over 2 years to fund this work. So we've been able to strategically schedule other projects that we have scheduled for the next 2 years to allow us to work on Elizabeth Ziegler. But to answer your question, we didn't receive capital funding to pay for the project.
Well, so am I hearing you say that we will receive no funding from the ministry at all?
No funding in the sense of there's no capital priority
No capital, but possibility of other.
We usually get our school renewal funding every year, but that's what we use to pay for the project. Because typically our major capital projects, the ministry allocates capital funding. That's separate from your school renewal. But in this instance, it's not, we don't qualify for that for this project.
Thank you.
Student Trustee Corr.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious that if enrollment is declining, how is the need for the schools learned or researched? Are you considering only schools that are operating over capacity and building a new school in that area? Or are there other factors that contribute to that? So my question is, how do you decide if we need a new school considering that our enrollment is declining over the years?
Question through the chair. So we work closely with our planning colleagues, and based on their projections, the information that they gathered, that tells us the enrollment for a certain area. So based on that information, we can just determine where the needs are, and then determine which schools or what we need in certain areas to help with the need for those certain places. So we have submitted to the ministry our needs for our capital priorities based on the projections that our planning department determined that we will see a need in the future. So it's data that's collected from our planning department that helps drive the potential or the future capital projects that we pursue.
Any follow-up? Yeah. Trustee Ramsey and then Trustee West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To you, Segar. My question is prompted by the earlier question with Elizabeth Ziegler. So, in terms of the capital funding, what if the board, this is I guess hypothetical, what if the board had decided to demolish Elizabeth Ziegler, would we have qualified then for capital funding for that area?
Through the chair to respond to the trustee's question. So that's not something that we explored because this is a heritage site and there are certain challenges that come with demolishing a building like that. So we didn't explore demolishing the building and applying for capital priority funding. We knew that when the building was determined that there were structural issues, our main intent was to determine how we can repair the building and bring it back and bring it up to current standards and make it fully accessible. So we didn't go down the road of looking at demolishing the building because of what it meant to that area and the history behind it. So we are always on track of rebuilding that school and restoring it.
Nicola?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I remember the name of the school in Cambridge where there were some heritage issues and some heritage pieces were preserved, and we did get funding for to build a new school around. Just can't remember the name. It was probably back in 2010 or somewhere around there. So I'm just, anyways, just putting it over. Which one was it? Yeah. Yeah. So, and recall when we were trying to make the decision or making the decision to go ahead with bringing things up to standard, I thought there was some optimism that we would be getting capital funding for it. Can you comment on that?
Through the chair to respond to Trustee's question. At the time when this was playing out, our intent was always to go to the ministry and request capital funding. But through our discussions with them, they informed us that doesn't qualify for capital priority funding. So once we learned that we had to change our planning for our renewal projects, and that's how we're able to split the cost over 2 years to try and get the school restored, renovated, and brought up to today's codes. But unfortunately, they just didn't allow us to have capital priority funding to cover the cost of this project, which is very unfortunate.
Okay, I have Trustee Weston, followed by Trustee Watson.
Thank you. And through you, Chair. Still kind of formulating my question, but I guess I was a little surprised that this wasn't going to come out of capital funding project, and it's going to come out of school renewal funding, which of course we always have a full list of projects every year for renewal projects. So good to hear that it's going to come over 2 years. I assume there will still be some renewal projects that will take place in other schools over the next 2 years as well. Like we're not dedicating our whole pot of renewal funding to the school. There'll still be other projects that will take place. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, so for sure, we are definitely going to be working on other renewal projects along with this Elizabeth Ziegler restoration. So we set some money aside out of our bucket of school renewal funding for Elizabeth Ziegler, but we still have a big chunk of projects scheduled for this upcoming summer and next summer. These are priority projects that affect the heating, that affect the building envelope of the building. So those are priority projects that will go ahead.
Great, thank you.
Well, Trustee Watson.
Thank you. Through you to staff. So I'm just going to piggyback on Trustee Ramsey's question. So in the past, Grandview Public School, we went through exactly the same thing, and then it was deemed prohibitive to repair, and so the school was covered. And now it sounds like when you're applying to the ministry, and you're obviously applying because you think there's a chance that they can fund it. For some reason, they decided not to. So do you know the reason? Like, did they change the funding with that? Like, why did they decide this time? Because you wouldn't have applied if you didn't think it could be potentially covered.
Right. So through the chair to respond to the trustee's question. So we did do a cost estimate for this project, and it wasn't cost prohibitive to repair. And because of that, it's one of the reasons why we didn't qualify for capital funding. If it was more money, if it cost a lot more, and it was at that point prohibitive to repair, they may have determined that capital funding would be required. So we didn't meet that threshold to qualify for capital priority funding based on the cost estimate, because that's all the information that we had to provide the ministry. And based on that, it was determined that it doesn't qualify. So it wasn't prohibited to repair like Grandview. So it's a different situation and I wasn't here at the time, but if it was prohibited to repair, so you basically had no choice but to demolish the building. So it's different scenarios.
Yeah, and through you, so I guess my question, like, I'm not casting blame or trying to, you know, criticize. I just wanna know what made the ministry decide, no, we're not going to fund, and now Plan B will be looking at getting the money somewhere else. So you're saying the only reason is because we didn't ask for enough, more money? It's like, I just wanna know the reason, why did the ministry decide, we're not covering this, you're gonna have to get it out of another part of the budget? Like, what was their rationale?
So through the chair to respond to the treasurer's question, so it's not that we didn't give them enough money, we based it on the cost estimate that was provided to us from the architect and the whole process that we went through. That was our basis for going to the ministry. We didn't come up with the figure. We based it on a schematic design that was priced, and we had an actual breakdown of what it would cost to rebuild the school, along with restoring it and making it fully accessible. So it was based on that information that we had, that we went to the ministry to request that capital priority funding. And based on their assessment, it didn't meet their standards for a capital priority project.
Why? What standards were they looking for?
Through the chair, I guess it's how they determine a capital project, like a new school, a childcare renovation, or an addition. It just didn't meet their criteria for a capital project.
I think Director Miller would like to weigh in.
Through the chair of trustees, the one thing Superintendent Sadar talked about was prohibited to repair, and that's percentage or a threshold. So when we submitted the cost of the school, they compared that to what a brand new school would cost. And our percentage of the cost comparative to a brand new school did not meet the prohibitive to repair. And hence, that is the difference between Grandview and Elizabeth Ziegler. The Grandview school met that threshold and above, which allowed us to put forward a proposal for a new school, which we received capital funding for. And the Elizabeth Ziegler situation did not meet that threshold.
Okay, I will now ask my question. And it's I guess more for Director Miller. The community around Elizabeth Ziegler feels that there's been a lack of information, and they've asked for an update. So now that we have this major capital projects quarterly update, are we able to give an update to the school community?
Through the chair of trustees, and we have been in a place where things have been somewhat paused as we were going forward and getting to a place to put a tender out for the restoration project of Elizabeth Ziegler. That, as we've heard tonight, is now just about ready to go forward, and we'll be able to provide an update to the community, and we'll be able to do that as soon as later tomorrow.
Excellent. Trustee Radin?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, just a kind of inquisitive question. So for the joint use school in Southeast Cambridge, does each board have their own architect and builder, or is it a joint build?
To the chair, it's a joint build. So there was one architect, one general contractor for both boards.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, thank you for this report. And there are no board reports. We'll move right to question period. And based on a question that was submitted in advance, you might want to stay at podium, Superintendent Sager. Because I think that Trustee Radon has a question about snow removal. Go ahead, I'll recognize you now.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I don't know who is going to answer this question, but trustees received numerous emails about snow removal and so my question is, it's clear that the board is facing extensive challenges in obtaining efficient snow removal services. So how are vendors and contractors obtained? And are we able to hold them accountable when the services requested in the contract are not provided? And then are we required to provide payment regardless of the quality of the service? It goes on and on. Does health and safety legislation have applications? And is there any possibility of, exploring options? I know how frustrating it's been for, facilities in dealing with contractors and this kind of stuff. So, is there anywhere else to go? I know that.
Being told that Associate Director Lerman wants to take this question,
Well, thank you.
or is willing to take this question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the nature of the questions, there's actually a dividing line between procurement and contract management parts of the process, and then I would say facility support in terms of contract execution. So this evening, Superintendent Landry has prepared some responses around the contract management and procurement elements, and then Superintendent Sagar should be able to respond to questions on how facilities has been able to support. So I think by way of response, taking the questions in order would probably be a reasonable approach. And I think from what I heard, the procurement elements would be best responded to by Superintendent Lang.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this will respond to your question about how are they obtained and they held accountable. So I'll start by saying on an annual basis, we spend about $2.5 million a year on snow removal services. And that's an important point because at that level of spend, we're required to conduct a formal procurement process to acquire these services. The request for tender process includes detailed scope of work requirements and references from other government agencies who the contractors have provided work of similar size, scope, and complexity. In cases where contractor performance is deemed non-compliant with the terms of the contract, the board may issue a formal non-compliance notice to the contractor, and this can be utilized to terminate the contract or not exercise renewal options. In most cases, WRDSB facility staff are able to work with contractors to identify issues of non-compliance, and these are remedied by the contractor. So for the current contract, the procurement process occurred last summer of 2025. Your second question is the WRDSB required to provide payment regardless of the quality of service? Withholding payment is not legally permitted under the terms of our agreement, regardless of perceived service quality issues. Any service-related concerns are to be addressed through the performance management process and cannot be used as a basis for delaying or reducing payment for services rendered. And I think the last question you had was around legislation. The WRDSB has a standard of care to meet, and we are working with contractors to ensure that is met on a consistent and timely fashion. While we are always open to the possibility of partnerships with municipalities, this would be a lengthy process to navigate, and there may be challenges when it comes to determining which properties take precedence during a snow event for example. So it's not that we're opposed to those partnerships. I think there's just a level of complexity there that we haven't been able to navigate. And certainly could not navigate it, midwinter during well-rated Mississippi, some very challenges.
Okay, and are you going to answer an additional part?
Yeah, through the chair. So regarding student staff safety, just wanted to respond to that safety is our non-negotiable priority. When a contractor fails to meet the 6 a.m. threshold, so the contractor has from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. to go to site to clear the snow once the 3 centimeter threshold is met of snow. Our internal facility services staff or on-site custodians take immediate interim measures, such as salting walkways, while we escalate the matter. No student is permitted in an area deemed unsafe by the principal. When it comes to vendor capacity, we've in facilities, we've met with the contractors prior to the break in December. We sent numerous emails back and forth. When there's a concern, we always take pictures and send a description of the work that needs to be addressed when a complaint comes in. So we are going to be meeting with both contractors again this week in person. And the central focus of that meeting is to get an update from them on their equipment list and the verified staffing plan for our specific sites. We need a detailed breakdown from both contractors because of these recurring issues that we're having from them. And then the next area is regarding site inspections. So my facility managers, supervisors, head custodians, site administrators, they provide us with routine feedback about how adequately the snow was removed during a snow event. So we rely on their feedback to gauge whether to see how the contractor is doing. And if it's not sufficient, they know immediately contact the contractor to come back and do the job again correctly. So it's been an ongoing thing with the contractors to get them back to site, to get it done correctly. It's responsiveness is our major one priority to try and get these areas addressed in a timely manner, and so it doesn't interrupt the school operation. So we're trying very hard to get these under control and getting the snow removed quickly and efficiently. And it's just it's something that we're continuing to work on. This week when we meet with the contractors, we're really going to talk to them more about this and our expectations and our dissatisfaction with them. So we're hoping this meeting is going to set even clearer expectations going forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've passed 5 minutes. I'm going to use my discretion as chair to extend question period and recognize student trustee Core and then trustee Ramsey with questions.
Through the chair, my question is there someone that's going around checking after the contractor has left? And is there a certain time frame that they have after the contractor has left to make sure the work's been done properly?
Through the chair, so once the work is completed by the contractors, we expect our custodians to go out and do a visual inspection of what's going on. I have facility supervisors and my area managers also going around seeing how the work is being completed. So I'm getting constant feedback from all the different channels from the school, even the site administrators when they go out and make observations, they expect to take expectations that they inform facilities, and if it's not done sufficiently, we notify the contractor to have them return and do the job correctly.
Okay, and my follow-up is I heard you mention something about 3 centimeters of snow, which is when the contractors come out to clean the snow and ice and stuff. What about if there isn't a lot of snow, but there's been a lot of ice built up overnight? Is that something that they also handle, or is it like part of the contract at all?
Through the chair, so that is something that is in their contract. So they are expected to monitor the weather forecast, and they should have internal mechanisms so to monitor what type of weather that we're experiencing. So if it's a cycle where we have thaw, freeze, or a thaw freezing cycle, then the expectation is that they come out and adequately salt our schools. The only issue with that is in Ontario, we are facing a salt shortage. So you may have noticed when you go to your home hardware store that there is a salt shortage. You can't buy as much salt. Now you're seeing other products like sand as another alternative to salt. So it's an issue that's being experienced provincial wide. So we are trying our best to navigate through those challenges by having the contractor come up with alternate products to use. But that is part of their contract to make sure the areas are salted properly.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Ramsey.
I'm not sure whether this should be to Superintendent Segar or Superintendent Langer, but whatever. I guess my question that is prompting here is that, yeah, we received quite a number of emails and so forth with regard to how things were getting done in terms of snow removal and so forth. But from a risk management point of view, where would that have placed the board? For example, were the contractors performing in a way that It minimized risk to the board in terms of slip and falls and so forth. And who's responsible if they weren't doing that?
Through the chair, respond to the trustee questions. I think a case of liability, we would unfortunately that would need to be litigated. We take our responsibility very seriously, and so do our contractors. In the event of a slip, trip, or fall as a result of the environmental conditions, we would have to follow our normal course of action in trying to support the individual and then deal with it from there. I resist trying to speculate where the liability would lie, because there would be a process associated with finding facts and determining the risk profile of the situation.
Okay.
So just a quick follow-up. Just the preventative measures are
very great.
Preventative measures then?
Well, I think that's been the focus of the answers already, that we're which preventative measures are in place. We want to avoid slips and falls. So we went over question period by 6 minutes, and so we're not going to go any further over. We have no other agenda items. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by trustee Weston, seconded by trustee Radman. All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.